Um, for something that was purely transactional, you gave a product, you maybe got money in return. We see a tendency now for things to become more service oriented. So I think personally, a part of the reason for that is entrepreneurs and established companies are becoming better at thinking about jobs to be done, right? That's why we spent a lot of time talking about jobs to be done yesterday. I'm going to speak a bit more about them today. Because once you map out customer needs before, during, and after they solve their core problem, then you manage to scope that into your value proposition and your business model. Then you certainly discover ways of monetizing, of earning money in a completely new way. So an example of this can be now that I don't really go to the or at least in Scandinavia it's huge, and I personally I don't go to the car dealer and buy a car and then it's my car and then I sell it in a few years. What I do is I actually don't own a car. However, because of a subscription service that exists here, and I'll show you it later, um, I have access to whatever car I want, whenever I want it. And I can either pay a monthly fee to have that access, or I can pay per use. Regardless, I'm a subscriber to this service. And we see this everything as a service. We see it in the health space, in the tech space, and what really enables it is tech platforms at the bottom. So it's super, super exciting. So for those of you that don't know it, read up on it. And it was mentioned yesterday that a potential market opportunity in the Palestinian area these days are home services and e-commerce. Make sure to think about service opportunities there. I think that's potentially huge. Retail. Do people need or want to go to the grocery shop, or can they have things delivered at their house? Can they just pick the menu elements, the carrots, the bread, the meat, whatever they want online, and then have it delivered at their door? One of the fastest growing companies in Norway. I won't draw parallels between of course, with the cultural differences and the socioeconomic differences and whatnot. It's dangerous to just take an idea from one geography and use it somewhere else. But one of the fastest growing services in Norway now is it's called Oda, and they deliver food at the door. They take market chunks from the large retailers because people just get whatever they need on their door. Okay, so that was quite extensive, or at least a lot of words there on everything as a service, but it's super important, and it's related to the two next bullets as well. So direct consumer, the second bullet, direct consumer, is the tendency we see that companies skip whatever mediaries, whatever brokers, whatever middlemen they tended to use before. They just go strictly to the end user now. Again, to use a car as the example, if I were to buy I don't know, Volvo Scandinavian car, it's called Volvo, or Mercedes or whatever, I usually had to go to a car dealer, and the car dealer had, the rights to take in the cars from Mercedes or Volvo or whoever, and then resell them to me, right? It wasn't like the middleman. We see now increasingly that the car manufacturers just skip those brokerage firms. They go directly to me as a consumer, and as a consequence, I can now sit online and I can tick all boxes of all features I want in that car, and I can order the car directly. So that's a huge trend, and it spans everyone, right? Or across industries. Yeah. Integrated revenue streams are parts of types of business model exploration phases, I think, that has led to increased collaborations. So we can see now, for instance, if you log into your bank, suddenly you can buy theater tickets, or you can have a bit cheaper food or whatever if you use these services and so forth. So these are basically collaborations that ensure that sales platforms sales are happening across platforms or across players. AI and automation, I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about that, but it's obviously super, super important as both traditional AI or machine learning based AI and generative AI is becoming huge. And sustainability is coming both in terms of trends and customer preferences, but also in terms of regulations and laws from governments and the lawmakers. So there will be some shifts there as well. McKinsey predicts. So just want to mention those. I recommend you to read up on them, follow, just pay attention to them going forward. I think there will be a lot of exciting opportunities there, regardless of where you are in the world. All right. So now today we're gonna skip through those steps that you already know from the innovation process, and the way we're gonna do that is to do some exercises for each step, and we're gonna use some idea that you come up with. Doesn't matter if it's a super duper idea or you think it's really cool, but I would like you, as a first exercise, I would like you to go to chat.openai.com. That is chat.openai.com, just to put it in the chat. So click on the link or go through your own browser, and I want you to if you don't have a profile there, set it up super quick, or don't. But if you do and go for a free trial or whatever your options are, I think you'll have access to it pretty quickly. And I want you to generate and prioritize some ideas. The prioritization part is a bit it's optional, but I would like you to actually ask it to come up with some ideas. Now, if you do have an idea that you would like to use as a case in this course from before, you don't have to go into ChatGPT now and then sort of use it. I would recommend you to do it. But the most important thing that once we're finished with this exercise, all of you have one theoretical idea we could explore further. And we're going to spend approximately 15 minutes on it, so it's going to be quite fast. And you don't have to share your idea with anyone. So if you come up with something or you have something already that you think is really exciting, feel free to use that. I'm not going to ask for it specifically. You don't have to share it in the chat. But for those of you that would like to share it, I'll be super happy. I'll ask you to share those ideas in the chat eventually. Not now, not yet, but we'll get there. Yeah. So first exercise, go to chat.openai.com or find your notepad, write down whatever ideas you have. Think about what you think could be cool to explore further, and then keep it for your own reference later. We're going to use the same idea going forward. All right, so 15 minutes. It's now 28 in a couple of seconds. So let's round that up to let's say 17:45. So or sorry, for you guys, 6:45. In 17 minutes, we'll meet back here with an idea. Okay. And feel free to ask questions in the chat. I'll be happy to answer to the best of my knowledge. All right. So our time is up on this particular task. Hope it went well. Again, if you didn't feel that you landed, oh, the ultimate best ever idea, doesn't matter. The point is now to getting into the mindset to be as agile and fast as possible in just generating ideas. Because again, the whole process that we've discussed is much about just being quick and not getting stuck into too much analysis, at least in the ideation and sketching phases. So yeah, I'm a bit curious how it went. Please feel free to share your ideas that whatever you came up with in the chat. There are two reasons for that, both because it's super interesting for me and others to see. Secondly, because it trains you to be able to share your ideas, which I think is a huge benefit for many entrepreneurs. I think way too many entrepreneurs are all about secrecy and keeping the ideas to themselves, and that sort of hinders them from discussing things with others. It essentially makes them sort of stuck in their own head, and we don't want to do that when we innovate. We want to keep as broad perspectives as possible. We want to stretch our thinking, and for that we also need others' perspective. Ultimately, innovation comes also down to execution. If you're fearful to share your idea, then be fearful to share it with people that could really just take it and make something out of it tomorrow, like that. But don't generally be afraid of discussing things with people. So we have one, yeah. So please feel free to share things in the chat now. I see one here that's looking into a functional food type that's targeted for lactating women. Okay, that's easy to use. Super cool. Yeah, awesome. Any other ideas that you feel comfortable sharing? Also, I'm a bit curious to hear about if you felt that ChatGPT acted in a certain way, or that it didn't give you good enough answers, or maybe you want to raise some concerns or thoughts during that. I'll be happy to try to address some of those issues as well. And this also goes because now in a couple of minutes I'll move on in the course, but feel free to share those thoughts in the chat just as we go, and we can always pick them up in the Q&A session. And when you ask those questions, other people might also come up with their own, oh yeah, that's right, I had that as well, or that made me think about another thing, and they share that. So awesome. Another one share that my idea is to create a completely online bank in Palestine. Okay, super cool. Yeah, awesome. um I just now maybe while you other guys share your ideas, I'll just quickly show you something here. Let's see if we can make our art come up like that. All right. I just wanted to show you this idea real quickly. This is one of the biggest sort of innovation we've had in Norway on the banking and finance side. And I was triggered because you mentioned, Tala, that the idea is to create a completely online bank in Palestine. This is super duper sort of innovative and tech oriented. This, which is called Bulder, they rely on the banking foundation of a more traditional bank called Sparebank Invest. It's, yeah, bread and butter banking services. But what Bulder actually does is just they give you loans and they continuously monitor the best interest rates for you. So you can feel as a customer, you can feel really assured that at any given time, there are no other banking players out there that has a fluctuating interest rate that is more affordable or better than the one you currently have. And the way they do that is just algorithmic monitoring of the market, and then automatically they give that to you. And there, let me see if we have some pictures here from the app itself, because the interface is super intuitive. And I know that just the UX, the user experience in itself, has had a lot of people starting to use this service. I think it has some smart and very user-friendly ways of showing how you can save more money and so forth. And so basically what this bank has done is just shift the entire how do you say it, a competitive space in this field towards UX and price being the two most important sort of jobs or pains to fix for the customers, and they've nailed it. So feel free to check that out. But yeah, super exciting with an online bank.
Actually, my idea came from the problems we faced as a client here in Palestine. So we wait for long hours waiting for complete our financial transactions. So online bank can solve all these problems, and you can complete your transaction just for 1 minute, for example. And my idea come from this pain, actually,
Your idea comes from?
from this pain, this problem.
Okay, yeah, awesome. Super. That's super. So that might what we call scratch your own itch innovation, because you've self-experienced this as as a hassle, as a pain, and you want to fix the problem. So that's super awesome. I wish you all the best pursuing that endeavor. Feel free to use that same idea going forward in the course. So what I'll do now, again, this was just a recap from the idea session from for Basan, who joined us earlier that wasn't here yesterday. This is our six-step innovation process. And because we're now doing a recap of the idea and insights phase, you'll probably be able to follow along on the other steps as well. So we're now going into the insights phase, just to have a recap on that as well. And I showed you yesterday that a quote I like from Ash Mariah, one of the thinkers from the lean startup movement, that people really tend to build a lot of products that nobody wants, or at least they're not willing to pay for them. We spent quite a lot of time yesterday talking about all the innovators out there, or almost let me rephrase, inventors, basically, because that's not the same. They come up with some idea and they fall in love with their own idea, and they don't test if people want it, and they sit in their basement and they spend so much time and money on building this something, and when it's done, they introduce it to the market or show it to somebody, and nobody wants it. So we also spoke a bit about that to ensure that one of the biggest risks in innovation, which is the customer needs, right? So having those understood is super important. And to validate that the user needs, or that there is a need for your product, that's what we call desirability. Then we must understand both who our customer is, what are their needs, and how is our solution going to meet those needs, right? So just to use the online bank again as example, maybe it's possible already now to sort of not know, but assume that a lot of the users of this online bank that Tala mentioned would be perhaps younger or more tech savvy. At least they would sort of know how to interact with the computer, right? Otherwise, it's hard. Whereas the older ones may be more traditional. So already there we have hints of who our customer is or might be. And now let's look at insights we might gather to or at this step at least, we look at insights as to what their needs are and how our solution can meet those needs. And we also spoke a bit about the so-called circle and the square, right? That you can see here on the right. So the circle is what we call the customer profile. In our business model canvas that we also spoke about yesterday, this is located in the customer segments part. And then we spoke about the value map, which is the sort of the solutions part of things that live here in the value proposition, and that together they form what is known as the value proposition canvas that I know some of you guys have heard about and maybe also used. Yeah, so just to really emphasize that, we said that on the text on the left side here, the key is really to understand who our customers and what their needs are. And so what we're going to do now is just sort of try to remember what we learned yesterday. And we're going to have another exercise. And I want you to use whatever idea you now came up with or you had before. And you're going to ask yourself, who is a potential customer of this idea? Try to be as specific as possible, right? So young people, period, that's super wide. Maybe there are some traits this user or customer have. Try to be as specific as possible. And also for some of your ideas, try, if it's needed, it's not always needed, but sometimes it is, to differentiate between the user and the customer, right? So the customer is the one actually paying for your product, and the user is the one that uses it. So in a lot of business to business products or services, I think product developers tend to overemphasize the needs of the user. But at the end of the day, the ones paying for this is the customer, and then, for instance, the user's boss. And if he's not satisfied, then you will lose that account or customer, right? So think about who is the potential customer of the idea you just came up with. And once you have that in place, I would like you to think about what their jobs to be done and pains are, right? So in the circle we spoke about yesterday, the yellow notes here are the customer jobs. It's the one to the right. And the pains are the ones at the bottom. You don't have to think about gains. If you come up with something, sure, put it down. But it doesn't matter now. The things I'm interested in and you should focus on at this point in the innovation process is the customer jobs and the pains. So let's do 10 minutes on that. It's now pretty soon 7 o'clock for you guys. So at 7:10 in 11 minutes, let's meet back here and I'll continue. All right, everybody. So we are back, and hopefully you tried to wrap your head around and asking yourself who the potential customer of your idea is, and then managing to separate any users from the actual customer if that was the case. And hopefully also you managed to tackle the problem of identifying or at least hypothesizing what their jobs to be done and pains are. So feel free to let me know how it went in the in the chat. And please share what you sort of struggled the most with. Was anything especially hard or confusing in doing this? Again, we are theoretical now, so it's just these are just hypotheses. But please share those thoughts, and also if you have anything other on your heart, or if you did any other reflections, and then we'll move on shortly. I see there's a hand raised there.
Yes, I want to share if you let me, please.
Absolutely, please do.
Yes, I just want to say that identifying target customers is the most important step, because if there are no customers for your project, there's no need to waste your time on something unwanted, as you mentioned previously. I want to say about my idea. I want to share my target groups. There are three target groups for my idea, which is online banks. The first group is individuals who have smart devices and are over the age of 18. And the second group is institutions of all kinds. And the last one is governments. I just want to share.
Okay. I'm curious, why did you come up with governments as your customer?
Because governments daily deal with their banks for some transactions.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I would like to challenge that and maybe at least consider putting government in the partner side, because you absolutely depend on them, but maybe they are not the ones you sort of are delivering the service to. So you need to know how they think and what they can do for you, and you need to sort of have them on your radar. But I would argue that your customers are more the other two groups that you mentioned. Um, and another thought is also that at certain points you would have to sort of find out if this, or maybe you know it already, if your solution would be sort of a digital layer on top of the traditional bank, which means you're just a sort of a service provider and then sell it to the bank itself. That could be an idea. In that case, bank would be your customer. And the sort of the app or the phone owners would be your end users, right? Or if you want to be in a bank altogether, then you probably would need to have like a concession for being a financial institution and so forth, and that is like the number one task to tackle. Can I actually get this governmental concession to run a bank business? I think it's a super cool idea, and I would love to hear how you approach it further. Are there any other ones that wants to share their idea? You don't have to do it verbally if you don't want to. You can do it in the chat as well. Thank you so much, by the way, Tala, for your sharing. It's super awesome.
You're welcome.
I'm not sure if you are shy, or if I am maybe I speak English too fast, or whatever it is. again, feel free to write anything of your thoughts into the chat as we go. Okay, so if it's okay, I think I'll just skip onwards, and then we will actually move into the first new step of the day, right? Because these two previous ones we visited yesterday. And
Vemund, if you allow
yeah,
me, can I have a question?
of course.
Yeah, if we go back to the previous slide, yeah, you mentioned yesterday that we should start with the customer jobs, right?
Yes.
And then go for the gain and then pain, I think.
Pains and then gains, yes.
Yeah, but let's say if we want to start with customer jobs for some project, maybe we have an idea about what the gain or what is the pain for the clients. Should we then go for the customer jobs first to start?
No, it's an excellent question. Don't force the process. So so if it's just if you're like super blank, you don't know anything about the customer needs at all, you don't have any theories, then sort of good perspectives from the design thinking realm is to start and ask very open-ended. And in those interviews, at least I found that it's helpful to try to assess what they ultimately seek to attain. But very often, the interview subject will talk about friction points, that is pains, right? Way before they actually come to their jobs. And then, of course, just let them. Or as you said now, if you have ideas of gains and pains, then absolutely document them and then go from there. But what we don't want is to sort of forget what they ultimately need to achieve, right? So
Yeah.
the jobs is the desired outcomes. It's what they want as the end result, and that is truly sort of where the power lies. And the pains are as you know the friction points on that path. So in when making solutions in sort of our next step, or at least sketching out solutions, then it's super useful to know the customer jobs. But again, great question. By all means, start also with the pains and gains if you have about those. Good points.
Thank you.
All right. So the sketch phase. If we assume now, bear with me, that we have we've surfaced an idea. We have maybe we've done some light research, maybe some market research. We've spoken to a couple of customers. So we have some idea about a bad choice of words. We have some clue about what our idea can now sort of ultimately be. Then it's time to sketch it out. And I've placed a parenthesis in the top right corner to just point out that we haven't at this point like really checked off the customer problem fit. We're not there quite yet, but we should have some idea at this point about who our customer is and what their problems are. And what's missing now are insights that we'll sort of use in the upcoming loop, in the assumptions test and evaluation loop. So I mentioned yesterday, so I won't spend a lot of time on it, but I'll iterate it once again, that when it comes to coming up with ideas and then sketching out concepts, value propositions, business models around them, then quantity leads to quality. Okay, so a lot of ideas is way better for us if we want to end up on a really good idea than if we just had like this one thing and we don't want to play around with it anymore. So in order to produce good value propositions, and of course, eventually business models, we want to produce a lot of options. And as I mentioned also earlier, different perspectives are a strength. I have yet to meet any one person that sort of is like this superhuman with the ability to come up with a great, really human-centric or user-centric idea and know about possibly the technological issues about it or the regulatory issues about it. Maybe the person who comes up with the idea also have some biases that are in there. We want to capture different perspectives. So try to produce as many alternative value propositions as possible. And if you are like most entrepreneurs are, like really on a time schedule, you feel your time is a super valuable asset. It's a scarce resource. You don't want to waste it. Then you can time box these activities. You can say, okay, for the next hour or the next 2 hours or the next day, then I'm going to come up with as much ideas as I can. And I'm going to sketch them out as much as I can. But after that time has run out, then I will move on to the next step, for instance. It's not a hard rule. It's just a suggestion. It's super easy for all of us, at least the ones of us who has a business degree, to, because we're taught to be so analytical. We tend to spend really much time on everything. I struggle with it to this day. And yeah, so a tip could be to set a time limit for yourself and then just move on. You can always jump back later, pick up old ideas and iterate. So yeah, so that's the point to be made. I haven't included it in this course, but I'll mention it. For those of you who are or will become quite good or avid at, for instance, ChatGPT, there are ways to actually instruct ChatGPT to and you can store it as well, for it to act as certain persons, or not specific persons, but certain roles. So I've heard examples of businesses that if they have ideas or discussions and they want to run it by legal, they actually have fictitious, this is called synthetic users, and they run it. They also ask this fictitious lawyer what he thinks about the idea. And of course, you can't accept what it says like at face value. You must challenge it and do your own research. But oftentimes it's super useful because suddenly this lawyer or this marketing figure or engineer or whoever can actually mention things that you haven't thought of, although it's just ChatGPT. So for those of you who are interested in that, check it out and read more up on it, because it can be interesting. Yeah. Okay, so now we've sort of, in our theoretical imaginary process here, we have sort of checked out the customer. We know who that is, and we have mapped the jobs and the pains and maybe the gains, and we have some sort of clue, right, as to what that is. And once that is done, it's now time to move on to the other. Sorry?
No, go ahead, Vemund.
It's now time to move ahead to the other side of the value proposition canvas, which is the what we call the value map. And once that is done, we'll eventually move on to the business model. And as you will see, several business models may come out of the same needs and the same solution or same value proposition. So this is just a suggested working sequence. In real life, you will find yourself jumping from here to there, and everything is more messy. But sort of the logic of it is like more this sequence: circle, square, business model. All right. And I'd also like to mention that great value propositions, they have certain traits. Okay, these the ones I'm going to present to you now, they are not absolutes. You don't need them. You don't have to have them. But if we look at really great, high-performing products and services, there tends to be some common denominators or common traits, attributes. So one is that effective value propositions, they focus on the most important jobs, the pains that are most severe, or the gains that are most appreciated. So if you do some customer research and you come up with 30 jobs and 10 pains and 50 gains, there's no way you can make a good solution that will really be high performance if you want to take all into consideration. So at this point, you really want to pretend you're experienced designer and you really want to figure out, okay, out of all of these things for this customer, what is the absolute most important jobs? If you nail that, then you will much more effectively craft solutions, products, services that are way more effective and popular. And it also goes to follow that if you manage to follow on a few pain reliefs, then and you manage to do those. Sorry, if you do focus on a few pain reliefs and game creators, you should do those extremely well. So if you manage that, then you come far away. There's also not a must, but effective or great value propositions tend to focus on jobs and pains and gains that really aren't sort of met in society, or they're not available easily. Maybe you have to pay a huge amount of money, so there's only a few people that have those pains met. But look for spots in the market where people are concerned with it and they value it and they want it, but they just don't have the solutions for it yet. And a clue here, we'll get back to that as well, could be to see what they actually do today. So if you talk to somebody or if you observe somebody and you know that something is very important to them, and you can oftentimes see they use some hacks, right? I know that at Norwegian airports, for instance, up until quite recently, a lot of people tended to sit at very odd places. They didn't sit at chairs or benches. They just sat on the floor by the wall or by next to the trash bin, for instance. And after doing some research, it turned out this was 2 reasons for this. And what they actually wanted, oh, look at this. I got balloons if I do. Wow, okay, cool. And there are 2 reasons for this. We found that one, they wanted to sort of be by themselves. These were typically young people. They wanted to have like headphones on with noise cancellation, and they didn't want to have a lot of people around them. And they also needed electricity for their mobile devices or their MP3 players or whatever. And because the airport didn't have outlets, electrical outlets by the benches, we saw that it was more important for them to be able to charge and then sit on the floor than to actually sit comfortably in the chair. Whereas another type of group that didn't have the same need obviously wanted to sit in the chair. So these are examples of hacks. You can see them everywhere around you. There are small little signs of people solving their own problems. And maybe that works. Maybe it's not a sufficient pain to actually make a business out of, but it's worth noting. Also, great value propositions tend to address not just functional needs, which are more like being able to do something. They also tend to cover social and emotional needs. So for instance, if you have a concept that is very popular among CEOs for running their accounting, for instance, or seeing their financial forecasts, that is a huge and very important functional need because they are responsible for seeing the numbers. But they also give them peace. It also gives them sleep at night, right? Because they have control. They have the feeling of control. And a system that is able to give them a larger sense of control than just more functional features is super valuable. Yeah, and customers, again, have different ways to measure success. So be sure to cover that as well. I worked for a long time at a product manager with Norway's largest public transportation firm. This is why you actually got a case with the buses and the business model design of bus companies yesterday. And what we found, we needed to do sort of a huge research project to understand what the customer actually needed. And when I say customers, these are the travelers for the public transportation authority. And this bus company or PTA hired some consultants. They did an analysis, and they found that when asking clients what was or travelers what was important, comfort was like the one thing that really came up. And they delivered this report to the leaders, and they said that, okay, comfort is where to go, man. People want to be more comfortable when they travel. And everybody was, okay, wow, super useful insights. And then we came along and we saw that, okay, wait a minute, what is comfort? What does that mean? Is comfort the same for an 80-year-old lady as it is for a 20-year-old boy? No, not at all. So comfort for a 80-year-old lady was seat availability, right? She should be able to sit on the bus. She's not comfortable standing. Maybe she has a grocery bag, maybe she has a cane. She just wants to sit. She thinks it's super uncomfortable if the bus driver press gas, brake, and the bus goes like this. Whereas young people maybe don't care so much about that. They can stand. What they want is more better information flow as to where they are, when they will be there. Maybe they can charge their phone. And that has super large implications when it comes to what decisions the manager in the bus company makes. Should they invest in training of the drivers, the bus drivers, to make them drive more smoothly? Or should they, the next time they buy a bus or lease in a bus, should they ensure that there are electrical outlets or whatever their displays? So be sure to you know this already, but be sure to sort of have the jobs to be done and the pains and the gains for each customer segment well mapped, so you don't mix up, and avoid, if you're speaking to people in interviews or you're doing surveys, be really, really careful about using or accepting subjective words like comfort or effective. Whenever people said, okay, what's really important for me is that it's effective. What does that mean? Does that mean that you want to spend less time doing it? Does it mean that you don't have to open the application as often? Does it mean that you actually don't have to think about it altogether? What is effectiveness for you, and so forth? And I think lastly, ideally, it's very hard in 2024, but ideally also value propositions tend to differentiate and outperform competition. Maybe even it avoids competition altogether. So a useful question to ask is, when you look at a possible solution, or you maybe you have a product already today and you want to be more innovative, you can ask yourself, what does our non-customers do? Don't they have this need? Or do we actually just don't meet their demands at all? Suddenly you can open what we call a blue ocean. That's a whole nother topic. We won't get into that. But that means you can avoid competition altogether. And it's super powerful. Yeah, and of course, try to make it difficult to copy. It's hard as well, but it's what we referred to yesterday as building moats around your product. All right, so please bear with me, people. I just want to talk a bit about how great business models have certain traits as well. So we just spoke about value propositions, and now we're refocusing on business models. And of course, they are built around great value propositions, right? So that's not really surprising. Ideally, they generate recurring or at least stable revenue, and they're scalable. That means your costs don't necessarily follow your income or revenues in a linear fashion. That means over time you can be highly profitable, and you have to invest less and less relatively in your capabilities. Some of them utilizes a really new type of cost structure. As I mentioned, maybe it's decoupled from the income. We'll look a bit at that as well. and they do protect from competition, either because you do your activities fundamentally different than others. For the business nerds among you, this is like spot on Michael Porter's thinking. Or you, from a resource perspective, you have something that the others don't. Access to some information, maybe have a patented solution, whatever. Ideally, you also want to make sure the income incurs before the cost of goods sold, which means you don't have to bind so much capital into your business. You're more lean, basically. And maybe you also have customers, partners, or external parties that create value for free. We see a large trend now in self-service, right? So whenever I go to the dentist, or if I had a dog or a cat and I wanted to go to the veterinarian or the pet doctor, I would sign in and I would pay and I would do everything from a machine that is already there. So of course this means you have to have some sort of tech infrastructure in place and everything. But that also means that the veterinarian or my dentist, they don't really pay for people sitting there handling incoming requests, right? It's all automated. If I want to set up an appointment, I don't call the doctor. I go online, as was mentioned earlier in the online banking system. I go online and I choose an available slot. It's all in the cloud. It's all web-based. So that is one way to create value for free. You actually you use the customers for it. You have platforms that we discussed yesterday, for instance, Facebook or Instagram or whoever. Well, basically, it's the users that create the content, right? Airbnb, they use the homes of people. The people themselves sell their own homes or rent out their own homes. They do all the effort. Airbnb is just a broker, right? So there's a huge potential there as well. All right. Last point I want to make is that when we are sketching our value propositions and business models, we want to think, I've mentioned it a couple of times already, we want to stretch our thinking. We want to really go outside the box and try to challenge our own biases. And I'll show you two techniques as to how to use that. I do suggest at this point that we take a 5-minute break just to go and grab a cup of coffee or some water or have a technical break or whatever. And then I'll see you back here. Let's extend that actually to 7 minutes. So we'll see you at 45. So 7:45, I'll meet you back here. Let me just quickly ask. Yesterday we took a break at exactly 7:45. Does that apply this time as well? Do you want to do that as well? Or is this point as good as any?
I think yes, we can do it if you want.
You want to do it at 7:45? Take the break at
45, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Then I'll continue some slides, and we will take the break. Take the break then. So let's. I'll show you now two techniques to sort of stretch our thinking, and one is called the 4 actions framework. It's from a book called Blue Ocean Strategy. That's super popular. You might have heard of it. And the other one are some key questions you can ask yourself once you have sketched out your idea to really sort of make it even more interesting. And the 4 action framework looks like this. So there are 4 aspects to any idea that you can try to do, especially if you look at existing solutions and think, can I do this better? Or can I do this differently? Or can I challenge this in any way? And 2 aspects here is about increasing or adding something. It's on the plus side. And at the top here, we have like the negatives. things you want to either remove entirely, or if you cannot or should not remove it entirely, then at least reduce it. So an example is the PlayStation versus Nintendo Wii. It's a much used example. So if you've heard it before, then please bear with me. You know, Sony PlayStation, these are gaming consoles. So people use them for gaming at home or whatever. And if we look at, if we start by looking at the PlayStation, this is specifically the PlayStation 2, right? I have not looked into whether the PS5, the PlayStation 5 has a completely different business model, but I think it's still the same today, and I think it applies today as well. So the business model for PlayStation can be mapped out like this. And I think this is the one we have the time for before the break. They focus on hardcore gamers. What does that mean? That is gamers that are really into gaming. They tend to value graphics, as we will see. But it also has the customer segments that are game developers. Because they are a console, they deliver the hardware and the platform. They also need games. And so they outsource games to developers. And remember the color coding from yesterday? Yellow is the same customer as the yellow, and purple is the same customer as whatever color that is. So the hardcore gamers tend to value the quality of the games, but also the number of the games, right? They spend a lot of time gaming. They want a huge experience. They want high resolution. And so they need graphics. In the PlayStation 2 value proposition, graphics and a high processing power was like super important to deliver on the expectations of the hardcore gamers. And they sell those consoles through retail stores, right? So the hardcore gamers go into the retail stores and they buy the consoles. Whereas the game developers, they want to reach an audience. They want to reach the hardcore gamers, sell their games to the gamers. And that is the value proposition PlayStation delivers to them, right? It's to reach and sell their products. So we already covered that what PlayStation does is that they earn money from console sales. What many people don't know is that they actually lose money for each console they sell. So if I sell one console, my numbers are red. And therefore, on the cost side, they basically subsidize the sales of consoles. But because they also enable developers to make games and they sell games, they get license fees from those games. And that is where the money lies. That is the way PlayStation earns money. On the activity side, they tend to spend a lot of time on manufacturing. They need super duper processing power. They need graphics. They need to produce these units, but they also rely on a brand, right? They want the hardcore gamers to choose them and not Nintendo or anybody else. And so they spend a lot of activity resources on marketing. And that means that the costs of these things also rely on the same things, right? So manufacturing, marketing, and also R&D tends to be a huge part of it. And that's why, because they need so much graphics, they need so much processing power and graphics power, they need to partner with state-of-the-art players. And at this point in time, when PlayStation 2 ran, IBM was sort of the go-to partner for that. So this is high level, as it should be. It should also always be simple. This is the business model of PlayStation 2. And when we get back from the break, we will take a look at how Nintendo Wii challenged this business model and actually carved out and made the whole market for themselves. So is 10 minutes okay, Mr. Jalal, or do you want time to maybe...
No, it's okay. This is excellent. 10 minutes is fine.
Then see you guys in 10 minutes. Okay, bye. Okay, guys, so I hope you are back and ready to continue on the session. We are sort of going now into a part of the course today that is quite slide intensive. So I'm asking you to bear with me and make use of the points I make going forward. A quick iteration now, as we spoke about before the break. PlayStation makes consoles for hardcore gamers, but they also regard developers as their customers because they actually provide them with a way to reach an audience and sell their games, ultimately charging them a license fee, right? The consoles are sold through retail stores. They lose money on each console, but they more than make up for it with the license they get from the games. And so they focus very much on making awesome graphics, high resolution, high performance gaming experiences, and that is reflected in their costs. They also tend to focus on brand building and maintaining key partnerships with the ones they have at, for instance, IBM or players that deliver state-of-the-art custom high performance equipment so they can get the processing and graphics power that they need, right? So that is the PlayStation model. Moving on from the PlayStation model to the one I mentioned earlier, the console of Nintendo Wii. And now we're going to use sort of the four forces framework that they used when they introduced their console, and they ended up taking huge parts of what became a much larger gaming market. And you remember there are four components here. They are removing something entirely, they are reducing something, adding completely new aspects, or increasing them. And so what Nintendo did was they thought, okay, hardcore gamers, for us, it will be difficult to meet their needs, right? We're not sure if we want to or have the capability of going into the sort of the heavy graphics hardcore gamers market. And so they thought that, maybe we can make gaming more fun and more casual, more available for the whole family. Maybe there are other customers there that don't use or are willing to pay so much for the graphics experience itself. Maybe we can define sort of a new market in casual gamers. And so they emphasize sort of the social fun factor. And they also generated a lot of revenues because now they opened up not just a small market of hardcore gamers, but they sort of wanted to make the gaming market available for, or at least the gaming experience available for anybody, right? And so they emphasized simplicity. They thought that, okay, we need a simple system. And by not having to focus on the super hardcore gaming graphics part, they reduced the processing speed. They reduced the need for super costly input articles or equipment. Their R&D costs went down, and their overall costs went down. Plus, because they didn't have to actually supply such an advanced, expensive console to the market to win these hardcore gamers, they didn't have to subsidize the consoles either, right? They could sell them and make a profit from them. Also, what they thought was a pain point for some of the users was the cords. Let me see, these things between the gaming console and the controller that you use to run the game. So applying this, we on top of PlayStation, you can see what they actually did. They, by not focusing on hardcore gamers, they increased the market size. They increased obviously their the sales of consoles, because now they can address much larger market than the hardcore gamers are. They can also keep earning or perhaps even generate more license fees because the games are simpler, they're smaller, and so there tends to be more games available in this segment. As I said, the need for graphics and power went down. They didn't have to subsidize their consoles anymore, and also the R&D and manufacturing costs went down. They didn't have the need anymore because they didn't need the super high-end processing power to collaborate with expensive or suppliers of expensive components such as IBM, and they could approach what we call off-the-shelf players that are just standard, cheap components, don't really do much, no customization is needed, and so they turned into new partners. So this is Nintendo Wii sort of laid on top of the business model of PlayStation, and that is sort of an example of pure business model innovation, right? So if you pay notice here into the value proposition, the technology that Nintendo used, it's poor. It's super poor. It's not advanced. It's not high tech. It's super simple, and yet they made a bunch of money just from the business model design. And this is part of the reason I'm emphasizing business models as important to learn how to use as a subject of innovation. Another example I mentioned yesterday was the Norwegian hair cutter chain that is called Cutters. So I think you see just in the top right corner here, you see something on the wall. It says cut time. So their marketing message is cut time, cut cost, cut hair. That is what they do, and that's why I think the brand name also effective. They call themselves cutters. They do cut hair, but they also cut time and they cut costs. And I don't know if you remember it, but I'll show you again the example with reference to the 4 actions framework. Because what they did was they really delved into what is important for certain customers in the hairdressing segment. Well, first of all, if you can see my pointer, people really want to save time when cutting their hair. Not everybody. Some people really appreciate it. They're more than happy to spend an hour and a half, maybe 2 or 3 hours with a hairdresser, getting a super nice experience. But a lot of people, or at least the more on the low end side of the market, just don't want to pay much and they want to save time. If you remember the jobs to be done perspective, they don't need the experience in themselves. The only thing they want is the hole in the wall or the hair finished cut. If they could do this and the hair was finished cut, that's what they would do, right? So time saving and efficiency was really increased by cutters, and they did that by saying that, okay, we're not gonna wash any hair. We are going to strip away every part of the experience that is not purely necessary to cut the hair. They asked themselves, okay, how can we actually do this? Well, let's use a technological system that allows us to log what preference the customer has from one haircut to the other, right? So when I go to Cutters, I know, or the hairdresser knows that last time I was there, they can see it was a month ago, for instance, and they know that what I used was 4 millimeters in the neck, 6 millimeters on the sides. They have all the information they need, and so they can basically emulate the same haircut, and that saves time. They don't really they remove the aspect of pre-booking, because what people really wanted was just to get a haircut, not to get a haircut at a certain point in time necessarily. And that also meant that they could cut their own cost, right? Because they have now a smarter system. They cut their hair. They spend 15 or 20 minutes on one customer. That's it. That is it. 15 to 20 minutes, that's it. And because you remove all the sinks for washing the hair, you move a lot of the other equipment, then you don't need the same space. So they can rent much smaller offices or smaller outlets, and that saves them rent, right? We have a mall right down here where they actually rent a place under the escalator. You know, the stairs. It's like, I don't know, 5 square meters, super small. They don't pay anything for it, and people use it all the time. Yeah, and final points is more than nice to have. I think this is more on the gain side than on the pain side, but you might see in the background on the picture there, they have small TVs or iPads that shows YouTube videos behind the mirror, so people can see themselves. But if they feel bored, although they're just there for 15 minutes, they can see something awesome from YouTube without talking to the hairdresser. So that is like a super efficient style of cutting hair, and the value proposition is much faster and much cheaper haircuts, and yeah, they've skyrocketed, become super popular. So again, the same service, hairdressing, the exact same product and service, but with a slightly different business model design, a completely different thing altogether. Okay, so we're looking at the 4 actions framework, and now let's look at some key questions to ask when you, in order to stretch your thinking. I won't really go in, spend too much time on them, and you'll have them for later reference when we send you the slides from the course. But one question to ask is, can we open up new or underserved markets, as we've spoken about? Are there people that could have the benefit of this solutions that aren't for some reason using any solutions today? Maybe we can utilize a different or add an additional revenue stream. Maybe we can go from transactional to recurring. We spoke a bit about that earlier as well. One example is the car solution I mentioned. I probably never will own a car, but I will always have access to a car. So this example is a car dealer or car retailer that takes various car models. They are new, and they handle the ownership. They themselves own them, and then just rent them out on a subscription basis to me. So basically, I can pay a monthly fee, and I can choose whatever car I need. I can say, okay, I need that car for this 3 weeks, and well, maybe the weekend after that, I'm going on a trip. I need like a different car, and I can change it. Doesn't cost me anything, and I pay a flat fee. And they have super recurring revenues, and yeah, pure business model innovation. Another question is, can we extend the customer lifetime, right? One way to do that is to increase your switching cost. Another is to think also in terms of recurring revenue. I think Gillette or whoever make razor blades have solved this, right? They sell, instead of selling like there's one transaction, they sell the actual razor and then they sell the blades, and you always come back and you buy the blades. And so the customer lifetime increases, right? Yeah. We can ask ourselves, okay, looking at the idea we have, can we attain even better margins than what would be our competitors? Can we increase earnings by differentiating between a customer and user? If I get my sound system to work later, I will show you a video about this concept. If not, I will send you the link. It's super educational. It actually started as a school project on Harvard, and now it's a monitoring system for monitoring the vitals of your baby. And they have pivoted many times, partly because they really understood, okay, wow, this is the user, this is the customer. Maybe we need to differentiate between those two. Another question is, can we skew our costs to be more aligned with income, as we spoke about, right? This is a prerequisite for true scalability. Maybe we can deliver a solution that exceeds the or goes above the industry standard. And maybe we can even be creative and combine some sales channels. I mentioned the theater tickets that suddenly are available through your online banking system, at least here in Norway. Another example is this. This is called morgenlevering, and what they do is they let users go online and select various packages of food, for instance, some cake or bread, along with some juice, maybe some jam or cheese or whatever, and they package it together and they deliver it on the door the next morning. Or whenever you want it, basically. And so what you can see here on the right is like a juice producer here, and these are normally sold in stores. And suddenly, when a player like this is established, they see, hey, there's another possible sales channel for us. Why shouldn't we use this as well? So now they're both in stores and they can be delivered at your door. Yeah, that's the idea behind that. Maybe we can work with unconventional players that we normally wouldn't work with. Maybe they're even our competitors normally. So one example is this is Norwegian example, but these guys are like they make really exclusive handmade meat and sausages and whatever by hand. So they cost a lot of money. They're really good ingredients from animals that have had a good treating and upbringing. And normally you have like the image in the background there, a large retail chain. They don't sell exclusive items like that at all. But they ask themselves, okay, maybe if we sell our sausages through their stores, we have access to a super large market, right? We cannot expect the same price per unit for our meat and our products, but maybe the sheer volume can offset that. And probably they thought there will always be the more traditional high-end customer that wants to come into our store anyways and speak to us and learn a bit about the food and whatever. So they maintain their current business as well. So that's been a huge success. Another example can be, okay, can we create additional value for our partners by making parts of our sort of, I spoke about the backstage yesterday, our activities, our resources, whatever we have on the logistics side and so forth, by making that available, can we create additional value either for our partners or additional revenue streams for ourselves? So this box you see here is filled with normal retail groceries that you can buy in the store. And these are the guys I mentioned that deliver them at home. So if I want to order food, I can sit on my phone or sit on my computer and I think, oh, next week I want to make this dinner, I want to make this dinner, and I want to eat this and that. I put it into a list, I click OK, and then I automatically pay for it, and it's delivered on my door at certain time intervals. And because they've had this business, they had a huge logistics organization, right? They have a cold storage for all the milk and the sodas and everything that needs to be stored cold. Well, maybe not the sodas, but anything that needs to be stored cold. They have a lot of cars driving around and so forth. And these guys, the ones in the top right corner here, they also deliver, and they're a delivery service. So they want to, if I order something completely else, maybe a new computer online, then they will deliver it to me. But what they saw was that, okay, the one firm has much excess capacity. They don't tend to fill up their cars, right? So a lot of the cars driving around are empty. That's super inefficient. It's not sustainable in terms of climate and environment. And it's basically expensive. So they just tagged along on their car. And now their cars they're filled all the way, right? So by thinking a bit outside the box and making joint forces, then you can really make your business model a bit unique and profitable. All right. We will have an exercise now. So I've made a exercise for you guys regarding the sketching, and it could be a lot of information to process, but bear with me. I think hopefully you'll manage to tag along and do this. So this is a fictitious case, right? Well, actually, it's not. It's a real case, but I've given things some other names. So Nablus Tools is a company that makes high quality, lightweight tools. And they make these tools for craftsmen and workers, basically, that work on construction sites. Okay? So they make tools. They're called lightweight tools because they can be held in one hand or two hands and be used on site by construction workers. And their current business model looks like this. So if we blow it up a bit, it looks like this. On the right side here, Nablus Tools, they sell to construction companies, right? They sell their tools to construction companies. What they sell are high-end tools. You can see in the middle here. So drills, maybe saws, typically electrical gear that you need to build stuff, make houses, make new offices, whatever. And they sell that to construction companies through their own salesmen. They have a sales force, which means I'm a seller. I can go to a construction company or the management of a construction company. I can say, hey, I have great tools. Maybe you want to buy them. And so their customer relationship is super one-on-one, right? They work really manually with these companies. They interact with them. They know a lot of people in them. But they also sell their tools to craftsmen. Whoever uses their tools, they buy them in stores, right? So you go into a regular tool store and you buy these things. And so what they do on the backstage part of the business model, well, they do some marketing and brand building, especially for the store sale, right? To get their brand known. They of course work on sales, as we just discussed, but they also produce these tools. These are high quality tools. These are really, really good tools, right? And because they make their own tools, some key resources for them are factories. They rely on factories, but they also rely on their brand name. And over time, they become quite known, so they now regard their brand name as a resource. In order to make the tools, they need some manufacturing partners, but they also need to buy components to assemble the tools, right? And on the revenue side, they're purely transactional. So if you buy one tool or buy 20 tools or 100 tools, you pay me for those tools, and they're your tools. You own them now, right? So that's the case, right? This is the business model of the fictitious company, Nablus Tools. Now, bear with me. Okay, something has now happened, and this is where I need your head to be at. Low cost production by other players has created margin pressure. That means that Nablus Tools is now, they make high-end tools, like really good tools, but suddenly everybody can buy cheaper tools, right? And so therefore the company is losing money. And the board and the management and everybody has discussed it, and they have found that okay, they only want to focus on B2B, right? Business customers, no private customers. So that's something we need to respect. And at this point, you now, as an attendee of this course, you're an innovation expert, and so you're hired to help them. And what do? Well, you do some best practice customer interviews. You talk to a lot of people, okay? And because you have done that, you have found out that this is the case on the jobs. For the managers and the buyers that are the customers you wanna address, those are your target customers, managers in construction companies and buyers in construction companies. Well, they are concerned that they want the right tools to be at the right place at the right time, right? Basically, and what they tend to spend a lot of time on, and they need to do it because they're part of their jobs, is to administrate and maintain and maybe even replace the tools that breaks. Okay, tools shatter or they're lost, and so they need to be replaced. And so some jobs to be done is to also to get new contracts. As a construction company, you want to win new contracts, you can build more buildings. That's the way you earn money, right? And so you will win those contracts and you want to deliver on them. You also, because you want to deliver on the contracts, you want to keep and reach deadlines. This is super important to them. That is part of their job. And they also need to manage their fleet of workers, but also tools. Because they're a large company, they have a lot of tools. So fleet management is something they spend some time doing. And what you also found when you spoke to them was that some pains they have is that, okay, they tend to buy these tools in bulk. They spend a lot of money on them. They say maybe, hey, I need 100 drills and 1,000 hammers or whatnot. And they pay for that, right? So there's a huge capital binding. Their tools, as I said, suddenly break or are lost even. So they see theft. They see that workers tend to take some tools home. They see that people going by the construction sites tend to steal some equipment. So theft is another pain for them. This leads to delays. This means that they struggle keeping their deadlines, right? And when they are on contracts, which say, hey, we're going to build this within this much time, if they don't keep their deadlines, they're fined, which means they need to pay money, or they don't get as much income as they had wished to get. And this leads to stress, okay? So these red ones are huge pains for the managers and the buyers. On the gain side, what they really want is like they want to ensure safety, that people are safe. They want a predictable cost because they don't like capital binding. They want efficiency, right? They want the construction process to go super smooth, don't break down, stop. They don't want to solve a lot of problems. They just want uptime for their products. And they also, of course, want their contracts to be profitable, which means they can't sort of delay or any of that. And they also want access to the newest tools because they know that that keeps their workers super productive. So we've now taken a look at the business model for the company, and we've seen the jobs, pains, and gains. And I want you to use the things you see on the right, the jobs, pains, and gains, to suggest a new solution, okay, that effectively solves the customer needs. That means that I want you to take a look at the left side of the value proposition canvas. You can assume that all of the things on the right side are correct. You know these things. You have interviewed a lot of people. These are the jobs, pains, and gains for managers in the construction sites and the construction company, sorry. So now the question that I have for you guys that I want you to spend some minutes on is let me see here. Yeah, I want just to spend 10 minutes thinking about, okay, what are possible gain creators and pain relievers? Remember that can address these the pains and the gains, and what can a possible value proposition be to address their customer jobs. So it's quite a bit of a challenge, but it's this is a real case, although I made up the name Nablus Tools. So I'll show you the solution in a few minutes, but I'd like you to spend, let's say, let's say we go to 35, okay? So 8:35, we jump back in. So you have 7-8 minutes on you. All right. How did that go? Was it hard, or did it you think you sort of nailed it? Anybody want to share their initial thoughts, either on how the exercise was, whether it was hard or easy, or not understandable, or maybe they want to share their actual findings or results of the assignment, either verbally or in the chat. I'd love to hear from you guys. Can you hear me, or am I
Yeah, we can hear you. But I'm waiting for some guys to join in.
Please do, guys, don't be shy. Please just share your thoughts. Any interaction is awesome. Okay, people are a bit shy,
I
or
think it is not hard, but it needs some thinking. That's why you have to have some kind of, let's say, creative ideas in order to have a solution that can maybe solve and create gains, and at the same time solve some pains.
exactly, right.
Yeah. So
Okay,
what I think about like tools as a service, this is one of the things like you do. It's like renting at kind of, instead of selling them, it's renting them, renting the tools.
okay, that's
This one,
interesting.
yeah, this may be one solution.
Mm-hmm.
Because you mentioned that's capital investment, so they don't have to look in a large investment capital in these tools, and at the
Yeah,
same time they need the newest tools, so we can create this kind of gain creators and pain relievers at the same time.
exactly, right. Okay, that's awesome. Any other points? Otherwise, I'll just jump into the or at least one suggested solution. I really think that was an awesome idea, Mr. Jalad. This is actually quite spot on the answer, or so to speak, the correct answer on this assignment. Because what they did was that they saw that, okay, let me skip one ahead. Yeah. They saw that, okay, here, right tools at the right place at the right time was like a huge part for these managers, right? They already decided they want to go B2B. The pains for the leaders was to avoid delays on the contracts. They wanted them to run as smooth as possible. They wanted uptime, and they wanted to replace defective tools and avoid stress and fines, right? And so what they suggested was basically, yeah, tools as a service, just as you said. So the way they did it was to implement a sort of an online fleet management tool, because we know from the jobs to be done at the right here that fleet management, knowing which tools are being used for what purposes by who, is a big part of running the operations, right? So they made a software, and so the managers could have full control of what the status was on the tools. But the same system also enabled, through sensors in the equipment, that whenever a tool was defect, they replaced them. That was part of the tools as a service. So whenever sort of a red light flashed in Nablus Tools headquarters, then a car would run out and replace the tool for the construction company. And not only did that give them access to the newest tools, of course, but it also made that the delays of the projects, right? remember, keep and reach deadlines of these building contracts is super important for them as a core job they have. Then that is really something that alleviates stress and lets them avoid fines, right? And because they decided to price this as a service or a subscription model, then they didn't have to bind any capital, right? So suddenly the gain regarding predictable costs and the pain regarding capital binding was fixed through subscription models. So they had full control over costs, and they got free replacement of the equipment. And so this is a real case, actually. The company is called Hilti, and it's used by Strategizer and others that advocate business model innovation as sort of a best practice example of how to apply these sort of frameworks. And it's also a way of thinking about something that is quite normal, having equipment at a construction site, but behind the business model that is completely different than the other ones. So I thought that was an example worth bringing up. And by the way, Professor, excellent answer. So all right. So with that fresh in mind and our sort of our hopefully blood circulating a bit around these types of themes, I would like to challenge you once more. And this time I would like you to spend let me see here. Yeah, so if we can just use 10 minutes, for instance. I know it says 15, but if we can manage to do this in 10, I would like you to go back to your original idea, the one we have used or the one you found earlier in this course. So we're not talking about the tools anymore. This is now your idea. And I would like you to look at some possible solutions to whatever jobs and pains you came up with in the exercise from before, right? And once you have done that, don't spend too much time on it. Just try to be really creative. Maybe interact with ChatGPT to get some ideas and evaluate the ideas and so forth. Once you think you have an okay value proposition set up here, try your best. I know it's a short amount of time, but try your best. This is just to get you into the mindset. It's not to end up with good results. It's just to get you in the mindset. Try to sketch out a business model or two, or maybe even three business models around that specific value proposition. So yeah, use your own intuition or ChatGPT. Let's say, okay, you get 1 minute extra. Let's 5 minutes to full on. We get back. So 10 minutes and try to do this assignment as best as you can, and then we'll take it from there. Okay, guys. So hope it went well and it wasn't too hard sort of to wrap your head around this case as well. I do realize, and it's part of the process, you now have looked at jobs and pains that are fictitious. You don't know if this is actually a real customer, or you might even sit with the feeling that the idea you produced earlier in the course isn't really worth pursuing. But starting to do this process will get you into the mindset of actually producing ideas and building business model designs way faster than if we don't. So the main purpose of this this activity was to ensure that we actually started on that journey. It will require some maturing. This means that the more you do this, the better you will get, and the more comfortable it will feel. For a lot of people, it feels really uncomfortable in the beginning. So with that being done, I would like to sort of focus now on the assumptions and testing phase of the process, because this is super important. And I have a lot of examples I would like to give you. I think I'll cover some of them in an all right fashion in this course, and the other ones you will have to review later, right? Starting with the assumptions, again, we've made an idea, we've formed the basis for the idea, and we sketched out some value propositions and possibly some business models around them. And we've chosen the business model, at least on paper. And what our innovation engine now needs to be sort of refueled and keep us on track is to surface our risky assumptions, right? So I mentioned this yesterday, and all ideas have some assumptions that must be true for it to be a success. Some, they're nice if they're true, but they're not must-haves. But some assumptions really must be true for it to be a success. And quite often, these are always, quite often, they are tied to desirability, that customers actually need and want and are willing to pay for this, feasibility, that we actually are able to do this, and the viability aspect, that we can make money from it, that it's aligned with our strategy if we're an existing company, and so forth. So the trigger question is, when we sit and look at our business model, is exactly what it says here. For this business model to be a success, what must be true, right? Both about the business model and the business environment. And so now we're at a point we want to identify those assumptions. Examples of such assumptions can be this, right? A large enough group of customers actually wants it. Maybe they need to be willing to switch from their current solutions. I've seen examples of businesses having great ideas, but they have a huge problem because the potential customers are tied to contracts that last 5 years or 10 years. They're legally bound to their current solutions. And so it's really hard to make them, you cannot basically make them switch, right? So maybe that's the case. Maybe we need to get a concession to run this type of service. That we spoke about that really briefly, about the potential online bank, right? If you want to be a full-on bank, you need some sort of permit to do that, probably. And so I'll show you now just the mechanisms before I show an example of how to identify and prioritize those assumptions. So we just want to be creative and use our own intuition in surfacing some ideas. In this picture, and we'll use this going on, the blue ones are the ones that are tied to customer needs or desirability. The purple are feasibility, and the light tone ones is our viability, right? Our profitability. And it's also worth noting that some might want to work in a manner where we also surface assumptions regarding the customer profile and the actual solution. The way I work, I do them all together. I take all the notes from the value proposition canvas, and I sort of just say to myself that this is inevitably a part of the business model, and so I just map them all together. That works best for me. Do your own thing. But this is all sort of the sequence a lot of people work in. And so when we have identified our assumptions, and please feel free to also use ChatGPT for this, right? It's super powerful as a creative sparring partner. More times than not, it actually comes up with something I haven't thought about. So just use it as a source of reference and inspiration as well. We want to use this 2x2 matrix to prioritize our assumptions. And there are two axes, as you can see. The y-axis goes from it's not important for our success to it's crucial for our success. It's very important. The horizontal axis or the x-axis goes from, yeah, it's important or it's not important, but however, regardless, we think we know something about this, right? We have some data, we have some experience, we have some sort of evidence, whatever. And then on the other side, no, this is new. We know nothing about it, right? And so we want to arrange our assumptions according to this grid. So what we do is we take all our assumptions and we start off on the vertical axis. So make sure that you prioritize from top to bottom first. Don't start all over. It'll be super messy. Start along the y-axis and ask, okay, which is the most important? And once that is placed, you rank all the others or place them according, right? And once that is done, you take them out to the sides. So you just move them out to the sides according to how much you know about it or how much you don't know about it. And what we want to prioritize is the ones in the top right corner where things are super important for the success of our business model, but we don't know much about it at all. I love these animations with the thumbs in it. So, and the reason we do that, right? The reason we start here is that if we have some assumptions that are critical for our business model to succeed, and we allocate time on it, and we find out that we cannot prove this actually is disproven, it won't work, then we don't want to spend any time. We don't need to spend any time on the other assumptions, if you follow me on that one, right? So whereas if we would start at the bottom or to the right or in the middle, we could have said, okay, we've found some evidence now, let's move on. And then suddenly, once you've spent a day or a week or maybe some months even, you find out that, oh, wow, this most important thing doesn't fly. We wasted all this time that could be spent on new ideas and new business building. So start with the ones that are most important for your success that you know the least about. And yeah, just covered that point basically. Don't prioritize the other ones for now. So just for your later reference, there are some common assumptions, and they're typically that, okay, we might be focusing on the correct customer segment. That whatever customers we have ideated around is actually the one we should pursue, right? We also think that we have correctly discovered the needs of that group. Also, if we have understood the needs, we also want to make sure we have understood to which degree, to which level our gain creators or pain relievers actually meet the needs effectively or not, right? And moving on now, you can see the colors of the bullets from desirability. We're moving down to feasibility and viability now. Another common assumption is that our solution design actually is meeting the customer needs in an effective manner. Maybe we can build our design solution in a reasonable time at a reasonable cost. We typically want to make sure that we can generate enough revenue to cover our costs, and maybe that no external trends or events or conditions will render our solution obsolete tomorrow or next week or next year, or maybe even or maybe just make our solutions attractiveness to weaken or be reduced, right, in the customer's eyes. So these are common ones. So please refer to these later when you sit and work on your future innovation projects. And also feel free to use ChatGPT. As I just said, this could be a prompt that you can use. Just when you get the material, feel free to copy paste it. I won't do it now, but this is a great way to ask, actually. Just for my business idea to succeed, I want to make sure I have identified all risky assumptions underlying the business model. Maybe you have asked it to sketch out 2 or 3 or 4 or 100 business models for you. You want to choose one of those and then ask it to iterate on that, right? And it's a good practice to always ask ChatGPT to give it a role, because if you speak to it stupidly, you will get stupid answers and you will tend to think that it itself is not powerful or super stupid. In fact, it can have reasonable arguments almost on a professor level if you prompt it correctly, and it can have shitty dialogue if you prompt it in a shitty manner. So in this case, I would like to ask it to act as both a seasoned management consultant with expertise within the particular industry, if we have chosen that one, maybe as well as a customer-centric designer, because that's super important for desirability, right? Management consultants aren't the best designers, maybe. And list what has to be true for my business model to be a success. And I also ask it to make sure to include the aspects we want, in addition to external factors such as technology trends, regulations, and more. Yeah, so that was just to show you the message. If you remember the example I showed you yesterday, I know a couple of participants didn't see that video, but for those who did, we launched this super high-tech, super potentially fun smart bike that went up and down with the terrain. It tilted sideways, it had brakes, it had gears, it had like a little screen showing a 3D landscape, it had virtual reality, glass. It was super high-tech, but it failed completely because we never really challenged our assumptions. We never really identified our assumptions, right? And so those were typically, okay, customers want to have more fun when exercising indoor, right? That was super important, but we felt that we had read so many articles about people struggling with exercising not being fun. So that in itself was like, okay, we think we know a little about this, right? What we didn't know enough about at all was whether the fun the customers wanted was driven by simulating a real life activity. Was that a point that when indoors that you went up and down on the side? We had no idea. And we had no idea further that at least some number of private consumers were willing to spend more than a certain amount of dollars on a bike, right? We hadn't tested that at all. We had not tested for willingness to pay, and we had not tested for which features were desired and which were not. If we weren't going to pursue the private market or the personal market, then we needed to approach gyms. And so we needed to see whether they were willing to replace some of their equipment with our bike. We had no data basically on that. We had some indications, but really no hard evidence. So these were the primary desirability assumptions that we made. None of them were tested. In terms of the viability aspect, we needed to be able to raise a certain amount of dollars. We felt fairly confident, at least when the cash started coming in from the investors. But we had no idea whether our service our service costs would be lower than a certain amount. We didn't know how much this would cost. We didn't know how often these brakes, the bikes would break down. Of course, we needed to be able to build the bike, but we had made a couple of technical prototypes, and we've seen a lot of finished products at the factory we had on Taiwan, and we knew that was the case. So okay, that's not super unknown. Yeah, and so forth. I think you get the point in terms of the different assumptions. So these are some examples. So typically, what I would like you to do now is just spend like a couple of minutes looking at your own business model and your own idea and asking yourself, you don't have to do it or write it down, just a couple of minutes and ask yourself, what are the most risky assumptions regarding this business idea? What would have to be true for your business idea to be true? And I'll give you 2 minutes on that one, and then once that time is up, we won't really treat it. We'll just jump straight into the testing phase. So yeah, I'll leave this screen up. You can use it as reference. It's not super generic, but yeah, 2 minutes, and then I'll get back to you. All right, guys. So with your assumptions now at least theoretically surfaced, we're getting into the test phase. And this is, in terms of time spending, I would say the insights phase and the test phase, by far the test phase is the one we want to spend most of our time, right? We want to continuously use this blue loop between assumptions, testing, evaluation, and so forth. And then seeing if we need to change our idea and so forth. Testing is super important. So quickly reminder from yesterday on this one, your main job as an entrepreneur is to systematically reduce risk and uncertainty, right? Before you invest big in scale. We also spoke about the principle that you should never assume anything without testing it, and that you want to test effectively by pushing down the red graph here, so make it convergent as much as possible. And when I say test, What on earth is that? Well, in an innovation context, a test is something we do in order to collect evidence and reduce risk. That's it. To prove or disprove an hypothesis. So tests can basically be anything. They're called MVPs. Sometimes they're called at least MVPs. I'm not too fan of that word because I think it's misleading, or at least it's become misleading. But examples are these, like there are a lot of tests or experiments, but some are observations. For instance, we just want to watch and see how customers behave. Just follow them around at the office one day, or oftentimes I've made arrangements with customers and end users to just actually tag along with them to see how they move when they get from A to B and so forth. And you always have to, of course, agree with them up front to do this, but it could provide super valuable in terms of insights. Other examples are interviews, surveys. You maybe want to prototype something. I'll get a bit back to both prototyping and especially the next point, fake ads and fake pitching, making landing pages, making slide alterations to your product to see if people change behavior. All of these things and more are what I call tests. And you want to, as I've said a couple of times now, select tests that gives most learning as cheaply as possible and maximize the level of evidence you get per unit of effort you put into it. And oftentimes the level of evidence and sort of the cost of running the tests are correlated, right? So in this example, I've mapped up just to take for instance, doing a simple, search trend analysis, doing a social media discussion analysis. These are tests that don't take up much time. You can do it from your computer at home whenever. So they're basically a couple of minutes and they're done. So that costs you very little effort, and they give you some evidence, but not a lot, right? I will go through the types of experiments later and to explain you what they are. But the intuition is what I want to communicate here. So if you run a pilot, everybody's going crazy about pilots. Oh, we have to run a pilot. And that's true. That's oftentimes very valuable, but they are expensive, right? Those are real case live tests in a live, real life environment. And so they are run at a certain scale and super expensive often. So my point is that there are a lot of tests you can run way more cheaply and effectively than pilots. And a tool you can use as a start for getting into the way you can test stuff is these test cards by Strategizer. The only thing is that they sort of, you should know is that they tend to state the following, right? We believe that, and then something, that's whatever you believe. And to verify that, we want to run whatever experiment, and then we want to measure, and then try to upfront, before you run the test, be super clear on what you actually want to measure. And then state to yourself and your team, if you work in a team, we're right if. I've run a couple of innovation projects over the years, and if you do this all the time to every little test or test iteration you run, it will be super time consuming. So as you get into it, you will be more and more comfortable remembering these types of things, and you can document them way more effectively and have them in a couple of digital tools I'll show you later. But as a start, they're super good for forcing you into that mindset. And yeah, so take those with you. I think there was a hand raised here, maybe.
Yes, I just want to ask that is it a fact that sometimes the cost of prototype or making a prototype is higher than the actual cost of producing the entire product?
I can imagine it could be, yeah. And I can also imagine that just making a simple clickable prototype, for example, using a no-code or low-code tool, is for for a person that knows how to handle that tool way faster than actually running an interview, for instance. So there are examples of prototypes that can be super expensive, but when I say prototype, I mean everything from a little tangible paper box up until like a full-scale clickable prototype where everything works except the back end, right? So principally, it's true. In practice, it's rare that a prototype is more expensive than actual product development. But you could be right, and everything highly depends on what you want to measure.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Feel free to ask more questions later. That is a good question. Please also note that up until this point, I've spoken about assumptions. And suddenly now I'm talking about hypotheses. And I didn't want to make a huge number out of this in this course, but an assumption is more sort of an umbrella, like a high term, a high abstraction level term that can be broken into more precise hypotheses. But for the simplicity of this course, I've sort of equated the two terms. So what we want to test here is hypotheses, right? And one assumption can be comprised of multiple hypotheses, and one hypothesis can require several tests to actually be proven or disproven. So some examples of tests. I thought I'd give you run through some examples of the most common tests to run. I've grayed out the top one, interviews, because we've spoken so much about that. But one example is like a clickable prototype. This could basically be anything. One thing that I've used a lot is actually just using PowerPoint and setting up interfaces and finding out how the customers or potential customers interact with the prototype itself. Also, a potential a nice prototype is just simple paper sketches, just broadly discussing the concept with the customers. I think it's worth noting that some prototypes and some types of tests are very good at validating your solution, but not as good as coming up with validating the actual problem. So if we jump too fast into the prototyping and sort of the more advanced tests, then we might miss a bit of the exploratory research. But I'll show you some tools later for prototyping that are common. Another type of experiment is discussion forums, and another type of test is just researching discussion forums. Just as we use ChatGPT, we can actually browse the net and see what people are discussing in discussion forums that might be pains for them. So one thing I did was that I actually searched a couple of forums prior to this course just to see what was out there. I'd like to mention that the advantages there is to see what you hear from the users themselves, what they say, and these are unsolicited answers or statements, right? They just say this by themselves. You're not asking them for anything. So they help you identify uncovered needs, and you might be able to spot product issues or weaknesses to cover if you have a product or you want to find out how you can make a better product than your competitors. But be careful that because people are weird, and some of the loudest people on the internet are not necessarily the most representative of what you want to make. And always be careful not to take their comments at face value. So some examples to check out is Reddit, Quora, of course, Facebook, and different comment sections at social media. And you might have access or apply for access to various LinkedIn forums as well, especially if you're B2B. Then LinkedIn forums for leaders, for instance, within particular industries could give you insights as to what goes on in their head and what they find, what they're struggling with. Also, no, we haven't used that functionality, but ChatGPT, as you might know, can browse the internet for you, and it can crawl these various discussion forums for you. So it's not super precise as of now, but I suspect it will become drastically better, and so you can know about that and try to have it work as an internet search assistant for you. So one example is just this. I did a quick search. I just checked out Reddit, and there was this theme that was called "What product sucks and is poorly designed even if you buy the best version of it?" And so first thing that comes up, right, is gaming headphones. It's necessary to get a set with swappable cords because it will break. Okay, so already there you know that people tend to be frustrated with the cords of gaming phones or headphones breaking. Okay, nice. Or laptop coolers, they tend to suck, for instance, or home printers. These might give you some ideas you want to look into. So this is probably not the best forum, this specifically, but it really might get you into the heads of some consumers. Another type of test is the concierge test, and I like this because this is a form of prototype that allows you to validate the business idea, the front stage of the business idea, to see are people actually willing to use this solution. But you don't have to build any back-end functionality. You don't have to make some expensive investments. And so one example, I'll skip that quickly, is that when Amazon first started, it started as an online bookshop, right? The founder was super curious as to why on earth can't we sell a number of titles online. And to see at that point, internet wasn't super mature. There wasn't a lot of users. He was interested to see, okay, are people actually willing to buy books online? And what he did was he set up a simple web page, just a simple web page, and he marketed it a bit. He spent some dollars on marketing, so he knew he had some exposure, and then waited and saw if people actually would use it. And whenever people clicked and added books to their cart, and they clicked buy and they paid, he would actually take the books from his home or go to a bookshop, buy those books, and drive home to the person and deliver it himself. This was not scalable at all. It was never a viable business model, but the whole concept of the concierge test is to just see, will people actually use this service or not? And once that is validated, then you can start building up sort of the back-end system and whatever automated sales functionality you need and the storehouses you might need and whatnot. Another example is the social media ad, or what's known as the shadow test. And I think this is super powerful because this allows you to test both your product, but also your potential problem. And also we talked about the solution message fit. It allows you to test various alterations of that as well. So super nice to explore the interest of a concept, and you can validate a variety of hypotheses. And what you want to measure is the click-through rate, right? Maybe you can even see if there is any engagement around it. So if you use Facebook, for instance, or Instagram, you can see, did people like this? Maybe they added each other. Oh my God, Lisa, you have to buy this. Then that is signs of things actually being interesting for them. And the bonus side is things costs. It's quite cheap to make ads on social media these days, right? So you need oftentimes to have some sort of insights on the qualitative side before you run them. You don't want to run a lot of tests purely quantitatively because probably you won't have enough data to know why people liked it or why they didn't like it or whatnot. So Facebook is cheap, Instagram is cheap. You can super effectively target whatever customer group you want. You can run ads on Google. They won't be as visual, but you can use their AdWords system. So one example is this. This is from the company I work in now called Reador Studios. We wanted for an American company to test, okay, is there a market for a new type of dog food or pet food? And so they made this thing. I think this image is free. They didn't spend $1 for the image itself. They paid, I don't know, $100 or something to get this. And it actually generated quite a lot of interest because people, that was what we wanted to test, if people wanted to have a healthier and better diet for their dogs. And some segments really were engaged. I don't recall when this image was taken, but quite short amount of time after the initial test was launched. And the thing with this is, if the customer would press shop now, they wouldn't be able to shop it because the product did not exist. So this is actually an idea. Some of you mentioned an online bank earlier. If there are certain feature or aspects regarding the online bank, maybe just the message interested in an online bank, so you don't have to go to the bank anymore, question mark. If people tend to, yes, take my money, click here, then that would be a super nice way to validate the interest for that. You can also do another angle. If you're not quite sure who the customer is and who might be the most interested, you can spend your dollars on Facebook going really wide and then just wait and see who clicks. Maybe you see some common denominators among them, right? So this is called shadow testing, and it's super effective. Another slight alteration of this one, and it might be also linked, is the landing page. So this is where you build super simple websites, maybe just sign up for some free website tool, and you want to measure the interest for a product or service, or maybe your value proposition or marketing message. And you want to measure clicks, right? See if they click purchase. Maybe they are willing to fill out a short form. In general, the higher the interest is, the more friction they're willing to endure. And when I say friction, it's just that the time they spend on the page. If you have like a long survey, if they're willing to fill this out, it's a super indicative that they're actually interested, right? And a bonus is that if they fill out a short form, for instance, with their email, which is quite normal to ask for, you can have a lead for later. So once your product is actually up and running, you can say, hey, I know you signed up for this a couple of months ago. Just want to say the product is now available. Click here to buy. You can, of course, also measure other things via other tools, see how much time they spend, what section they tend to linger the most on, and so forth. And the way you get them into your site might be through the shadow test, which we just saw, or for instance, Google search ads. So you might be willing to pay for some ads on Google there to see if there's any interest. LinkedIn might be a case, and so forth. You should be mindful not to make the website or concept too appealing. I wouldn't make a super ugly page, but your point that your aim at this point is not to sell, right? It's just to learn. And if you have a super ugly site, but the value proposition is really powerful, and you still get an interest, that is sort of more evidence that there is a real pain than if you have a super sexy web page, right? So there are, of course, a risk that potential clients are a bit disappointed when you prompt them and say, hey, okay, this product, thanks for your interest, but it's not available yet. But it's as we say, it's always worth that risk, right? So some tools to set up a web page could be Squarespace, Wix, Shopify. There's a bunch of stores out there. Some are free, some are not. Some are more expensive than others. Don't overthink this. It's super simple. Just be super clear about what you want to measure. So for the same dog example here, when people clicked into the different ads, they might get different. We tested also the marketing messages, but to keep things simple as of now, this could be an example of a page they came into, and they would see quite clearly what the value proposition was, and they could click learn more. They can also list their name and email and then send me more information. And once they did, of course, we had the information about who they were, and we can contact them if we wanted to sell things to them. But first and foremost, we wanted to measure the interest and see whether they actually were interested or not. So I'm not going to ask this out loud. Just a question is like what type of action do you think users can do on a website that provides the best evidence for interest in your product? And the answer to that, if we stack them up with a level of evidence on top, if they actually make a purchase because they think the product exists and they're entering their credit card number, that is sort of the best, because that literally is evidence they bought this. Okay, so the product don't have to exist. You just have to implement the functionality of taking payment. If they're willing to enter their credit card number, then they're interested. A good evidence, though not as strong, is buy now or add to shopping cart. As we just saw on the other website, it could be, okay, let me know when this becomes available, and then they enter their email address, or maybe they just click read more. And maybe they don't click read more, but they spend some time on the page and so forth, or they just enter the web page at all, maybe because they click on the link or the ad. So there are, in all your tests, there are of course different types of evidence, and because there are so many tests and so many types of evidence, you have to be both creative and smart when setting these up, right? So I'll quickly run through some other examples for you. Another one commonly used, maybe especially in the B2B segment, is the pitch deck, okay? And that is, you make a presentation that actually shows a product or service, and it looks like an existing product or service, but it doesn't exist, okay? So what you want to do, if this is a physical meeting, this is always the best, either visually, like now, where you can see each other, or physical in real life. Then you can see how they act. Do they lean forward? Are they interested? Do they tend to lean back with their arms crossed? Does their face reveal smiles or any signs of interest? Or are they super skeptical? All of these are signs of interest, right? And remember, we want to see, we're more concerned about their actions and their behavior than what they say. So if they sit like this and are super skeptical and say, yeah, sure, I could be interested in that, then it's a weaker evidence than if they are, this is cool, when can we set up the next meeting? I want to buy this. And some examples you can use, of course, are just the standard presentation tools. Sometimes we set up things in Miro and Figma, which are also awesome tools to use for prototyping. And Miro is also quite useful for just project management and insights, mapping insights. You can use Illustrator, of course, to make mock-ups of your fictitious product. There are also some AI tools which you should check out. These are always updating. They're coming new AI tools on a weekly basis, but some of them are Canva and Visme and SlidesGo. So I'll show a couple of examples from the AI tool that is called Visme. And I don't think these are real concepts, but even if they are, this is examples of slides you can make to go into a meeting and see if there's interest. Just like simple setups, decently nice looking slides that show what the concept is, what the benefits is you're going to get, sort of what jobs to be done that are accomplished, and what the product or service is, right? So another example is this, sort of an e-pay system. This is more of a business-to-business solar panel thing. Imagine you can spend some hours making this deck using free image resources to test out value propositions and business models that they're not close to being developed, right? The only thing we want to do now is just take down risk and get as much learning as quickly as possible. I'd advise you to be super cynical about this. The only responsibility you have at this point is to de-risk and to learn as much as possible. Make mock-ups, push them out there, see if people click. Don't really yeah, think about what happens if they click, and then you just want to see is to measure their interests. The final example is just a letter of intent. Again, this is for the B2B players out there, and that is what it sounds like. It's a letter of intent, and it's a document stating a clear intent to pursue a dialogue to do future business. This is super common in the business world. Letter of intents or LOIs are signed all the time, and they're not legally binding, but they do, however, indicate some interest, right? Why else would one want to go through the process of setting up a document, reading through it, signing it, if there's no sense of commitment at all? So when I've done this in a couple of projects for clients, then we've made mock-up pitches like the ones you just saw, like these ones, and we say, okay, these are this is actually for sale, and we're super interested in getting leads for our client. If you're interested, we'd be super happy to sign a letter of intent with you. We have a pre-made letter of intent. Would you be comfortable with reading through that and signing it? And when people said, yeah, sure, that would be a positive signal. When they said, well, you know, I don't think so, then that would be sort of better measurement than earlier when they just said, yeah, we might be interested in this. So look for those kinds of signals when you get, yeah, sure, I want to have your product, and then you give them a letter of intent, and then they say, oh no, I don't think I can sign that. Then you know that what they said earlier was bullshit, right? Yeah. So a tip I'll give you is to always explore new concepts qualitatively, run interviews, observe people, interact with them, maybe have some early phase prototypes, give it to them, talk about it. But when you really want to validate, you want to do that quantitatively as well. So you want to push things maybe online. Maybe you want to stand outside a mall or where there's a lot of people and see how many people sign up for a newsletter, whatever. But you want to see the volume of things, right? You don't want to lean on the statistics of just 3, 4, 5 single users. Yeah. Don't exaggerate the qualitative exploration. Through our work here, I've found that there's quite a lot you can find out by just making a simple prototype and placing it in the hands of a potential customer. But if you don't have any idea of what their needs are, then having a discussion around a prototype is super difficult. So you have to find sort of the middle ground there, right? Yeah, and I'd like to mention again that we've followed sort of a rigorous process. But don't get too stuck in the sequence of the innovation process. You will find yourself jumping back and forth, trying various experiments, reiterating on your idea, jumping back to the previous experiment, running it again. Yeah, that's a tip for me. I won't show it now, but I have a link to a video. This is from a business model competition. These are Harvard students, and these are the guys that made the concept I showed you earlier. That's called Owlet. This is super old. I think it's, I don't know, 10 or 15 years old, if I'm correct. And remember, it is a business model competition, so they're on time, they speak super fast and everything. But they take you through the process of how they did it from an initial idea and the various findings they did and the way they jumped back and forth through the business model is super, super borderline best practical and also very informative. So a warm recommendation to check that one out. I'd also like to mention real quick that for tests that are relying on visuals, that, for instance, you saw the dog food a test we ran, all the types of fake ads, landing pages, pitch decks, whatever, then generative AI can help you, right? And you already know ChatGPT, you should know that OpenAI also has another image model. It's called DALL-E 3. Check it out. They are coming up now with a absolutely mind-blowing video-based AI called Sora. If you haven't seen that, check it out. I think the whole movie industry will be completely disrupted by that. They're super realistic footages that's appear to be filmed live in the real world, but they're just generated by this this generative AI. But I thought I'd just mention while we're on it, and if you can't find like really the picture you're looking for in the free databases I'll show you in a minute, then Midjourney can be the way to go. It is a bit tricky to use it properly, to properly prompt it, but I've included in the slides in this course some pointers, at least to some parameters you should know about. So this image you see here are examples of pictures made by Midjourney. This is from a rebranding and positioning project that my old company did. This was this local farmers concept. They were keen to check out the interest for type of arrangements almost out in the wilderness, and they've spoken to a lot of people about it. They felt that they had some insights as to what people valuated, but they didn't know if people really grasped the concepts. And in order to make people grasp the concepts, they prompted Midjourney to generate these images. So these are just AI generated images. They're not photos at all. And I think Midjourney is way better today. I think we did this, I don't know, a couple of years ago. So you should definitely check out Midjourney to see if they can give you images you want to use in your prototype work. And they can also be super powerful to use in terms of marketing messages, right? So these images are actually not just for testing the concept, they're also for testing the branding profile. So they did various workshops with clients to measure the interest of various types of images, and these were the ones that sort of gave the most interest and positive ended questions, and so they ended up with using these in their marketing profile. Right. So I won't go into detail now because we're running out of time, but notice that Midjourney, I can show you quickly. Let me see here. Looks like this. Midjourney tends to use a platform called Discord for their front page. So it's not super user friendly and it's a bit hassle setting it up. There's a lot of great instructions as to how you do that online. So I won't show you that either, but I recommend you to set up your own what's called a server, so you don't really generate images in a huge feed with all the other people. And once you have your own server, you can prompt it with this. So it's basically, if you want interest for maybe let's do the online banking thing. There are some rules as to how you prompt it. You might want to Google that as well. They always start with imagine, and then you press tab, and you can press you can write whatever you want, but you want to try to be both concise and you want to separate your various aspects with a comma. Again, this is not a Midjourney deep dive course. There's a lot of great YouTube videos on this, so check those out. But I'll show you real quickly. Let's imagine a website for a new online bank in the Middle East, making it simple for users to see their finances. I would say serious but playful trustworthy. Maybe let's go with the professional as well, and I will add on UX, UI design, UI inspiration. I would write website once again because I really wanted to understand that this is a website. And I'd also say that I want an aspect ratio, which is the size of the image, to be a 16:9. And I'll copy that for later reference. I'll press enter, and it'll now take a couple of seconds to generate this image. And while it does that, I'll show you quickly the parameters. I just used the aspect ratio. It has some other parameters. You can read a lot about them if you click on the link later that I provided here. You can make it be really crazy, really creative by using the chaos parameter. These are just attributes that you want to use. If you want to remove certain objects, you can do that as well. You can ask it to use a certain type of visual style. And also, it always gives you 4 suggestions. And if you want more than that, you can save a lot of time using the repeat parameter. So now it's just finished. So this is the end result. This might just give us, just as a creative sparring partner, may give us some inspiration as to how things can look, right? Okay, maybe this looks like a nice color setup for me. Purple is a color that's almost always associated with elegance and seriousness, for instance. Maybe I like the green one a bit better, and you can reiterate on that one. So if I want different versions of one of them, for instance, the third one, I can press a button and it can generate that as well. So please check out that. It's super powerful in prototyping, and yeah, a great tool overall. Right. So I think this is we're at a point here now where I'd just like to close the innovation process. And I realize I don't have much time if you want to do a Q&A for the last part, which is a toolkit. So I'll just show you the pages afterwards, and then we'll finish with the Q&A. So the last step is super simple. We've now run some tests, right, of our assumptions, and we need to know what to do now. And we can now always ask, is my assumption or this specific hypothesis, is it validated? Do I think it's true? Do I have the evidence I need to sort of be fairly certain it holds? Or is it disproven? And I remind you, if this is a highly critical hypothesis or assumption that we've tested, and it's disproven, then we can sort of scrap this version of the business model, right? We don't have to run tests of all the other assumptions because this was the most important one. But maybe, and this is the most common one, the findings you make, they are unclear. You have to run more tests, other tests, before you go on. This often leads us to this point here in the middle, the green dot. And then we're at, okay, do we now want to refine our business model because we learned something new? Or maybe we don't have enough data to actually go ahead with this business model at all? Do you want to make a pivot, which is a slight alteration of the core of the business model? Or do we want to kill the idea altogether because we really don't think, based on the evidence we have, we don't think this idea will work? We'll run a lot of tests. We've spent several weeks on this. There really seem to be a lot of solutions out there already. The players that have those solutions are really struggling. Oof, this is not a space we want to get into. Let's kill the idea. Let's go on to the next idea on our list. Super cynical, super business oriented. That's it. Next on list. Or maybe do we find evidence for the business model is enticing? Then we want to move on to the next assumption and test that further. So again, this is the testing loop. The same steps were followed all along. It goes like this. Maybe a couple of loops there before we go up there and so forth. Yeah, so that is that's the whole idea basically, and I thought I'd open up for some questions. Before I do that, I would just want to tell you, I think the time has really flown away from us. I've added to this course a toolkit, which is at the very back of the slides you're going to get. And in that, we're talking a bit about how to manage your team effectively, and how to manage yourself effectively, and how to manage your business. They're super simple. They're like 3 principles for each category, and at the very end there are some tools as well. So I will change windows now, and I will open for a Q&A. Let's see here. So these are the slides here. All right, so guys, yeah, I'll be happy to answer any questions for the time we have left. I realize that if you have to go when we're finished, that's so cool. That's super okay. But I have for what it's worth, some extra minutes if you need it. So please feel free to ask some questions if there are any. Yes, Tala.
I just want to ask if you, do you have your own business?
No, currently I work with a company called Reading Studios. So what we do is exactly what I'm doing now with you guys. We are a corporate venture studio. So we help businesses come up with new ideas and de-risk them super effectively. And if they turn out to be great ideas, then they typically spin off and become their own companies. So I don't have my own business. I have startup experience, as I've mentioned, but currently I work as an innovation strategist.
Okay, so I want to thank you for your valuable information. I hope to get practice of this information. Thank you very much for your time and for your um,
Thank you,
information.
Tara.
Thank you so much. One thing I didn't mention actually earlier are 2 things. Firstly, for all participants and everybody involved here, please feel free to add me to LinkedIn. I'd be super happy to stay in touch. If you have the time at a certain point before it goes too long, please, I'll be super grateful if you could fill out a quick feedback survey. So I'll just post the link to that in the chat for everybody. And it's like 3 or 4 minutes to just give me some feeling as to where I was at in terms of level, in terms of examples, if thing went too slow, too speedy, if I focused on the right things and everything. So for the next iteration of this course, it hopefully will be a bit better. This was first time in this format for me with the 4x4 hours. And not knowing you guys, I sort of made some guesswork as to how to put my teachings. So please fill out this survey. It would really be helpful for me to make a better course. All right, so I'm happy to answer more questions, or any questions you have if you have any more.
If you have any question, please be our guest. Vemund is here. Try to use him as much as possible while he's with us. I have a question, Vemund, concerning the doing business in the Middle East. If you have any experience with the venture capitalist or some even entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you think about entrepreneurship in the Middle East and in particular in Palestine?
In terms of what? In terms of
Entrepreneurship in the Middle East and in particular in Palestine. What do you think?
what I think about it, I think it's super, super interesting. So I think as you and I discussed a while back, I think it's super interesting to be more involved in the business environment of Palestine in particular. I think it's horrific how I've seen the gross domestic product of Israel is went like skyrocketed like this, and for good reason. The Palestinians' GDP has stayed relatively flat, right, for decades. And I think it's heartbreaking that you have to sort of operate your own economy and run your own businesses under with the situation as it is, basically under the boot of the Israeli occupation. So my heart is really with you, and I really think that
Thank you.
possible. Yeah, no, I really think it should be possible to, and really interesting to see if there are lucrative niches maybe in the online sphere and other areas where Israel can't as easily put sticks in or stones in your boots and stop any progress from being really lucrative. So that being said, I don't know too much about the business environment in the Middle East. I don't know neither the Palestinian economics or the Israeli economics in particular. So I'd be super happy to learn more about it. I'm super eager to get closer into these sort of environments. And and of course, it goes without saying, super interested in any collaboration and further dialogue if that should be interesting for you. So
Sure,
yeah,
sure. This will be happening in the future, inshallah, Rabbil Alamin.
I hope so. Yeah. So I'll stitch together this as a PDF, so all the participants from yesterday and today can get sort of the whole package, and I'll just forward it or send it to you, Ms. Jalad, and make use of it as
Yeah,
you
for
want.
sure. And I would ask any of our guests want this presentation. I appreciate send email to this email, the email of the faculty. And I will send you the presentation of this training course, inshallah.
Perfect. All right, guys. Thank you so
Okay.
much for your time. I'm super happy to have
Thank
been
you. Thank you. We come to
so
the end to our two-day journey, Entrepreneurship Success Mastery, Innovation, and AI Tools. In behalf of the Faculty of the Business and Communication, at An-Najah National University, I would like to extend my deepest thanks to each of you for your participation and engagement throughout this training. A special thank you to our incredible speaker, Vemund Rudshagen, whose insights, expertise, and practical wisdom have left us with invaluable tools for our entrepreneurial journey. From exploring new ideas to leveraging AI tools to mastering self-management and leadership. I hope you now feel better equipped to tackle challenges of innovation with confidence and creativity. Thank you all once, and I wish you the best success as you move forward. Let's continue to build the future together. And I would also emphasize that these initiatives come from Vemund I would like to thank him very much for this. And I hope next training course will be in Palestine, inshallah, at An-Najah National University, face to face, not online.
That would be awesome.
Inshallah. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, guys. Have a great one. All the best.
Thank you. See you.